Hello and welcome. My name is Alan, and today we are looking at, for Spooktober, witches. Especially in the U.S., in America, the whole continent, but especially North America and particularly the U.S. They have more history here than you would think. Quite a bit. I know usually when you think of witches, the first thing that comes to mind for the U.S. is the Salem witch trials. Massachusetts, Salem, and people were. There was a madness of people just constantly being accused. You're a witch. You're a witch. You're a witch. Yeah. Many people, executed or imprisoned. Yeah. Started in 1862 with some young girls at a sleepover, and they apparently had reactions, and the first one they blamed is the slave Tituba. Trials started, and soon enough people were getting accused left and right all over. Yeah. Yeah, it was a small town. 500, a community of some 500 persons. There's Salem town, which is the more well off and is modern day Salem. And then from it, Salem village, only about 500 people. So yeah. Let's see. Tituba, yeah, she was the first one who proclaimed had cast a spell on these young girls. Like I said, from there, all kinds of finger pointing. They took it to court and said, and you had other people saying, I see a spectral presence. These girls are being possessed. That kind of stuff. Nonsense. But yeah, with that, let's look at some well-known witches. These are from southern folklore of the southern U.S. We have the Witch of Yazoo in Mississippi. Local legend tied to Yazoo City dating back to the early 1800s, and you'll see a lot of them that are connected to the 1800s. And the story goes that a mysterious, decrepit-looking old woman lived on the banks of the Yazoo River. She was notorious for luring fishermen to her house, killing them with arsenic and burying the bodies beneath the wooded hill nearby. In 1884, the town sheriff caught her in the act. She tried to flee, but was eventually captured. As she was dying, the Witch of Yazoo cursed that she would return from the grave to burn down Yazoo City, fast forward 2 decades to 1904, when a fire mysteriously broke out, destroying more than 300 buildings. Many people would see it as, oh, it's the witch's curse taking action. But there's no proof because it's still technically mysterious, so we don't know. We just don't. Now, yeah, perhaps the South's most famous witch, the Bell Witch, Adams, Tennessee. In 1804, John Bell and his family moved his family to a 320-acre farm in Tennessee. 13 years into their new life, they began reporting strange occurrences, including mysterious noises, objects moving on their own, and physical attacks. The ghostly figure, now known as the Bell Witch, seemed to focus on John and his daughter Betsy. Many believe the spirit was a woman named Kate Batts, who had a grudge against John surrounding the land he had purchased. The witch took credit for John's death. Then a mysterious vial was found next to his bed, and the state even recognized his death as supernatural. Legend continues to take on a life of its own. Even Andrew Jackson claimed to have encountered the witch during a visit to the Bell home, declaring it too terrifying to stay. But yeah, many people say it was because she was in a cave there in Adams, Tennessee. And you can still go there and see the cave, apparently, so yeah. The first witch of Winnsboro, from South Carolina. Mary Engelman is another intriguing southern witch who was accused and tried a century after the Salem witch mania. In the late 1700s, cattle fell ill, crops failed, and people and animals began acting strange. Looking for a scapegoat, the town claimed Mary, then 77, could cast spells, shapeshift, and control storms. Mary and three other accused witches were tried illegally with first-person accounts to their heretic ways as the only evidence. Now, unfortunately, many people, all they need is, have you seen them do this? Then they are guilty. That's not how that works. They were said to have been tied to a tree, their feet set on fire to burn off the souls. Records show that Engelman later sued the people who tortured her, but they most skipped town. Mary was likely not a witch, but just good with herbs and tinctures, and had an unfamiliar German accent. Marie Laveau, Louisiana. Yep, one of the more famous names. You don't often think of her as a witch, but she technically was a practicer of voodoo and is known as the Voodoo Queen of New Orleans. She was a hairdresser by trade, and many New Orleans wealthy women entrusted their secrets to her. Her influence stretched across the city, and people of all classes sought her for her magical abilities, spiritual advice, and healing powers. She became a legend in her lifetime, known for conducting rituals in Congo Square and working with charms, spells, and potions. She passed away in 1881, but people still visit her tomb in St. Louis Cemetery No. 1. So yeah, Marie Laveau. And then there was Mary Oneida Toops, who was the witch queen of New Orleans. So we have a voodoo queen and a witch queen. She's lesser well known, but an intriguing figure in the 20th century. She lived from 1928 to 1981, so she wasn't that long ago, and chartered the Religious Order of Witchcraft, the first coven registered as an official religious organization in Louisiana in 1972. Known for her charismatic personality and keen understanding of occult traditions, she was unique in blending New Orleans' mystic voodoo and witchcraft culture with modern witchcraft practices. And there's supposed to be a picture of Mary Oneida Toops. Grace Sherwood of Virginia, known as the Witch of Pungo. She was the last person convicted of witchcraft in Virginia in the early 1700s, and worked her family's farmland, grew her own herbs to treat people and animals, and served the surrounding area as a midwife. Surviving records paint her as a nonconformist who wore pants when she worked, spoke up for herself, and cared deeply for animals. So yeah, a lot of this was very unusual at that point in time. There's still people who's like, no, girls should wear dresses. It wasn't all that long ago. You still could hear people say that. So wearing pants was highly unusual. And, women were meant to be seen and not heard, according to many people. So speaking up for herself, again, unusual. So, yeah. Throughout her life, she was embroiled in at least a dozen accusations by her neighbors of everything from witchcraft to assault. They claim she caused crops to fail and animals to die. She was eventually subjected to a trial by water on what's today known as the heavily trafficked Witch Duck Road in Virginia Beach. She was thrown into the river to see if she would float, which was a normal test for witches. They had all these weird tests that normally people, wouldn't necessarily pass always. So if you couldn't swim and you sank, oh, you were innocent, but now you've drowned. She survived the ordeal, but was imprisoned for 8 years. She is remembered as a symbol of early American witch trials and unjust persecution. Alice Flagg of South Carolina. More of a ghost story with witchy undertones and connected to South Carolina's Low Country. According to legend, Alice fell madly in love with a common lumber worker, a man her fancy family vehemently disapproved of. Her brother took on the role of man of the house after her father passed away and allegedly ripped the engagement ring from a ribbon around her neck while she slept. In the morning, she was panic-stricken and began clawing at her neck for the ring. She descended into a comatose state and died shortly after. And apparently her restless spirit is said to roam the woods. and marches still searching for her lost ring. But yeah, these were all from styleblueprint.com, a number of southern witches. The last one I don't really call a witch, it's more of a ghost story. Because technically she really didn't do anything to curse anybody, but or use witchcraft on anybody, so it's like, eh. So a bunch of interesting cases here of supposed witches. Now, let's head over here to Wikipedia for witchcraft in North America. The views of witchcraft have evolved through an interlinking history of cultural beliefs and interactions. These forces contribute to complex and evolving views of witchcraft. Yeah, witchcraft in and of itself, it's not always communing with the devil like is often portrayed in stories and movies and such. Sometimes you're just, making things to help people, whether they're salves or tinctures, things they can use to help heal or clean up things or whatever. So witchcraft is not this all evil thing as it is sometimes portrayed. But yeah, witchcraft in North America, though, goes way back. Native Americans in the United States, the Cherokee, Chickasaw, Creek, Delaware, Hopi, Miami, Natchez, Navajo, and Seneca. They have a history of defining witches as evildoers who harm their own communities. So yeah, witches in these communities are defined in contrast to medicine people, who were healers and ceremonial leaders, and who provide protection against witches and witchcraft. So in this case, they saw witches as evil. They give a few examples here. The Cherokee, with their monster stories of witches, Ravenmocker, Spearfinger, which I made a video talking about how that scared me to hearing that tale as a kid. So yeah. They were supposed to be major killers. The medicine people are seen as a priesthood caste known to work together in groups and help the community. As in other native communities, they are defined as the opposite of witches, who are seen as criminals. Traditional Cherokee witch lives alone, eats alone, fearful of being poisoned, and commits heinous acts alone, surreptitiously under the cover of darkness. Jealous and hypersensitive by nature, the Cherokee witch lives in the ever-fearful grip of being publicly exposed. Cherokee healers have doctored dogs, so the dogs can help them detect witches. So yeah. The Hopi. many beliefs and concerns about witches and witchcraft. To the Hopis, witches or evil-hearted persons deliberately try to destroy social harmony by sowing discontent, doubt, and criticism through evil gossip, as well as by actively combating medicine men. So a lot of the times it's very much just being a gossip. Um, Suspicious deaths are often blamed on witchcraft, both members of the community trying to figure out who might be a witch and who might have caused the death or other misfortune. They are called popwat, the plural of pawaka. Witch or sorcerer. They are unequivocally evil, casting spells, causing illness, killing babies, and destroying the life cycle. They practice Pawakotsi, the life of evil sorcery. The Hopis call them Kuwitvi, or shit people. But, and the Navajo, one of the more famous people may know of, Skinwalker, although often it's used incorrectly, as is often the use when modern white people tend to take it to use it for scares. It's like it's often bastardized, and it's like, but yeah, it's become so common now. Traditional Navajos usually hesitate to discuss things like witches and witchcraft with non-Navajos, as with other traditional cultures, the term witch is never used for healers or others to help the community with their ceremonies and spiritual work. Okay, and then with early British America and the U.S., the Massachusetts Bay Colony, the Salem witch trials. Really, really common. Yeah, and don't forget, the Inquisition was running at toward the end of its time in Europe. So, I mean, this fear of witches was like everywhere almost. The Malleus Maleficarum. I've got the Hammer of Witches somewhere in my books in there, but yeah. A few of the witches in different states or witch events: Flowing Wells Witch Trial of Arizona, the witch trials in Connecticut, Massachusetts, the Salem witch trials, Maryland, the Maud Dyer case, New York. Now they had a mass hysteria of witches, people accusing people of witchcraft. Pennsylvania, they list some cases. Tennessee, Virginia. But yeah, a number of different cases to look at. But even beyond the settlers and colonialists, the natives had tales of witches and witchcraft. Then we get um, some categories in American witchcraft. Witchcraft in Latin America, witchcraft in North America. Associated daughters of early American witches. Azalea Banks, Bell Witch, the Bell Witch Cave, Paula de Aguiluz, Ergotism, Ghost Sickness, Handsome Lake, Possession of Elizabeth Knapp, medicinal or medical explanations of bewitchment, the Nagual, Olea Riti, or Rigti, I'm not sure. The Raven Mocker, the Cherokee, there. Salem, Massachusetts, the Delaware Sea Witch, the Skinwalker, Spearfinger, Spectral Evidence, Stragaria, Sinsuck, Tupalak, Voodoo Doll, Warlocks of Chiloé, Wayab Mary Webster, an alleged witch, Weathersfield, Connecticut, Witch Ball, Witch Window, Women's International Terrorist Conspiracy from Hell, Wonders of the Invisible World, and then Template Witch Trials in America. So there's a whole lot to look at there if you want to check it out. But yeah, we'll go ahead and end this talk here. Well, material. Witches. How do I feel about witches? Do I think they exist? Possible. Possible. I know there's many of a user of herbs and other ingredients to make salves and potions and salves and potions and tinctures and all kinds of stuff to help with health and other things like that. You know, many people back in the day used to know what a lot of these plants we have around here could be used for. And so a lot of it, I think, is people with knowledge not often passed along in the normal routes of education and stuff. When you get into talking of spells and stuff, though, that's much harder to say. Because honestly, just personally, I've never seen anything that can confirm such things in life. But yeah. we'll go ahead and end that episode there. As always, educate thyself. Think, read, study, learn. Someone tells you something you have trouble believing. Ask them to cite their sources. I'll be putting these links and sources in the description box below the video. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, later.